Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's debrief. Can I firstly say congratulations to everyone involved on winning your BJTC award for the best news day. It's another terrific effort. The reason that Brian gets these fantastic editors to come in and look at Winol, and the reason why I'm quite tough on you is because we want you to produce the best. And by picking up these awards, which you have done, I think, for the last 3 years on the trot, it just proves that you can produce the best in the country and come up with a really, really good bulletin week in, week out, if you listen to what these people say. So congratulations on that score. A really, really fine effort. I'm very pleased, and it's always nice for us as well as you lot, because it looks like we're doing something right. So well done you, but you've put in a huge amount of teamwork, and that is what Winol is all about. It is about teamwork, and you have proved that over the years that that's the most important thing. And well, you look at this bulletin, and I would say it's probably better than the bulletin that won last year. It is a terrific bulletin. It is full of some really, really good stuff, top quality stuff. And it is often towards the end of this semester that we get some very good work, because the third years are just coming towards the end. They've had that massive amount of experience. The second years are feeling part of the team, really beginning to work hard, and it all blends together. And that's when you end up with a bulletin like this, which is, by any stretch of the imagination, good enough to be put on regional television. Yes, of course, there are things that can be improved, but there are some pieces in this that really are good enough for regional telly, and there's some work there that stands out above the rest. And let's just go through it, because I know you've got to listen to me again, and I'm sorry that I get on with this screen capture program, and I think I'll probably ditch it and get another one for next semester. But you're going to have to listen to me because there's still no sound on it. Bear with me, listen to what I've got to say, use it in conjunction with the bulletin itself, and hopefully it'll be of benefit to you. Right, enough of that. The bulletin itself. Starting with the headlines. What a great range of headlines these are. This has everything. There is a great picture story with a house blown up with a good grab. There is a gambling story, real personal interest, a terrific grab from your victim, as it were, your human interest story. Absolutely fantastic. The Old Boy Dancer is just brilliant. It is so regional telly that it just hits the mark, bang on, which is what I was going to use for the explosion, but I couldn't. It was too tortured. And the football, you've actually got a story out of it. That is the best thing. And the link, when you go into this story later on, I'll talk about it. It is great. If I'm going to say one thing about it, the grab goes on a little bit too long. You should have come out at "we were abysmal." Bang, that's your cut point. Goes on for a little bit too long. If you cut it there, sometimes less is more, and it gives people a real, that tease sense, which is what your headline should be. But overall, absolutely spot on with the heads. I thought they were really, really good. What I also like about your first two stories is the way you've tried to do things differently. It's not just read link, read link, read link, and here's a package, here's a package. I think what you have done is played with the mechanics of a TV bulletin, and that is really important. Otherwise, it does get dull if it's just package, package, package. So what I like about that is that, Zena, you're throwing to Stephen, and it's as if it were live. Now, there are some techniques that you've slightly missed out on, because you say, I spoke to him a little bit earlier. It's a bit strange because you never actually come back, and it looks very much like, here's a recorded piece. That might have worked if you had actually come back in and asked him a question, even if you weren't doing it live and you just threw in a dummy question and then edited it around it. So what you do need to do, I think, is just say something like, Stephen sent this report earlier from the scene. That's what you need to do. As far as that bit was concerned. There were some great pics, well-told story again, and real sophistication in trying to broaden it out. It wasn't just this explosion. Look what happened to this area before, when there were 4 fatalities a couple of years ago, I think it was. So from that point of view, that's a really grown-up way to look at it, to bring in the earlier story and put how this drama has blighted this landscape again. So that's good. What I would say though, Stephen, and think about this, is that I think your story is slightly upside down, because the best pictures came a little bit late and the best grab came a little bit late, because ultimately I want to see what the damage is to begin with, and then I want to hear from the neighbour. So actually, rather than bringing in what had happened to the other, to the same place 2 years earlier, let's talk about now first. Use those brilliant pictures that you've got of a house literally that doesn't exist anymore. Use the neighbour, who was great, and yes, you can use him 2 or 3 times because I think he was full value, but then go on to the other bit. So almost turn what you've done upside down, and then I think you get a better balance to the story. Get the here and now in first, the update, the fresh story, and then go on to what had happened previously and widen out that story. But again, really good, very comfortable in front of camera, which is nice. You're telling a story. In fact, some of you, in fact all of you today who've done pieces to camera, you look so comfortable in what you're doing, and that is so difficult to do. And from that point of view, real congratulations. Let's move on to sort of stories 2 and 3, or 2A and 2B, as it were, that you brought together, the Hants Police one. Now, I like the way you've set it up. I think you've learned from what we've done before, where it wasn't quite set up properly. These 2 stories are connected in some way. Okay, they're police stories. But I thought it was a sophisticated way to try and tell the 2 stories. I think you did very well, Tom, just to think about getting pictures from somewhere else to illustrate the story. If we can use the echo footage, and they don't mind that, that's brilliant, because there must be times where we should be shoving stuff towards the echo. I'm not sure if we're doing that. If we shove stuff towards the echo and we get a credit for it, then that'll drive more people towards us. So if we can have this sort of symbiotic relationship with the echo, then that is fantastic. So we should definitely be using pictures like that. Your interview with, I think his name was John Apter, forgive me if I'm wrong. This is quite clever actually, because you are lower down, but it's so well framed that this is one of the areas where you can be lower, so you're not on the eye line, so you're shooting up like that. It's a terrific piece of framing, and it works absolutely perfectly, and you get your background right, and it is framed in a thirds way, and you've got the tower behind you. You can see it all. It's just very nicely shot. So from that point of view, well done. Even just simple things like your final shot, getting a police car in it. Too often we get police stories, we don't even see a policeman. So at least you've got the police at the top. You've then got police in a car along the street. It's just illustrating a story. It's very, very simple. And while you are short of pictures, I think you have told the story. So well done from that point of view, Tom. Bracken, fantastic on camera. There's real authority about the way you have presented that. So from that point of view, I think that is terrific. I think we could have built up the fact that 40% underreported. Is that what it is? 40% is massive, and it needs, I think, a response from the police. I'm sure they're still ignoring us and they don't want to have anything to do with us, but it's a massive, massive thing, and I think we could have been a little bit more critical of that. The graphics behind, again, absolutely brilliant. And Callum, if they're your graphics this week, 2 incidents of being absolutely nailed on. I thought they were fantastic. Real visual aid to Bracken doing a piece in the studio. Absolutely right. Clear, concise writing from you, Bracken. And so from that point of view, it worked. It's a perfect sort of debrief in the studio with a stand-up from a reporter. So linking those two together, I think that's really good. So well done from that. Brooke, your gambling story. You have got, again, I keep using this word sophistication, a real sophistication you have done since week one about telling a story, writing to pictures, good scripts. There's a good piece to camera in here. It is a really, really good package. Josh, your victim, as I said earlier on, or your addicted gambler, is great. It's a perfect case scenario. Maybe I would like to have known how much he gambled each month, each week, or whatever, and how much in debt he was, or whatever it might be. I needed a bit more depth to it, but the construct of the story and the way you've put it together is really, really good. It's another good piece to camera. As I said, the graphics are great, really creative. You've thought about it, a roulette wheel, and the way you've put it in, the info inside is very, very good. You started with shots of, something that was, whether he was gambling on that or not, you have to be careful. But the type of thing that he was gambling on, you've got to be careful that you don't pinpoint something that it's not what he's been using. But anyway, the whole piece was, very, very strong. A couple of things I would say. The sequence you use, please try and use a cut, not a mix. When you're using, I think it was a hypnotist you used, or a hypnotherapist, you use mixes from one shot to the other. Use cuts, hard cuts, but do it in a way that your sequence works, so that I know you use the mix because you've got a shot of her going to a shot of her in the grab. But if you used another shot, like when she was typing on a computer, then that is your shot to use as a buffer between a shot of her and a shot of her, rather than mixing in between. Don't tend to use that, okay? But otherwise, I thought it was a really mature package, so very well done. Isaac, your women bishops story. I mean, to get a line from a vicar saying, we'll have a black gay woman archbishop one day, hopefully. I mean, it was very amusing. She's a great character. So I think from that point of view, she really helped you, Reverend George. What I wanted, though, is when you introduce her, you need to see her face. All I see is the side. I know you are talking to her, but I see the side of your face. So we need to see her when you say Reverend whatever George. Then we see her rather than you talking to her and just the side of you. You see her legs or her arms or something like that. So we need to see her face. But well done for getting into the church. Maybe that opening shot was it's a little bit dull. It's nice to have the music underneath it. You would have liked the vicar maybe lighting a few candles or something like that, doing something around the altar. Maybe he said, don't film the altar. I don't know, but that's what I would try and get him to do. Or putting on his robes or whatever it might be. He just needed a little bit more going on. But well done for getting him. Can I also say it's a terrific noddy. Now, the noddy is a technique where you see a cutaway of the reporter and they go in like this. It's not too, and yours, it's not too much. It's a little nod of the head, but you use it perfectly and very well done from that point of view. What I would say, two things. We've talked about Reverend George and wanting to see her face, and also the angle of your interview is a little bit side profile, okay? It's been a little bit profile. So you just needed to be nearer the camera to bring her face round a bit, or bring the camera nearer to you. So otherwise, you're just seeing that, and it's not enough. We want to bring the eye line round, so it's more that sort of angle, so you can see more of the face. You want to be able to see both eyes. So that's where it wasn't quite right. That's the first thing. The second thing was the second vicar, the male vicar that you spoke to. You did the interview outside when you do your setup shot inside. So it just makes it a little bit strange that you're doing that and you're jumping. Small technique, but try and do him inside if you're doing the walking intro shot inside. If you're doing that walking shot outside, then that's fine. Do your shot outside. Could have had you both coming out of the church and then interviewing him. That's fine. But again, well done. The link, however, going into your story was very, very short. And Zena, if that's you, then you needed to develop that story more, because I don't necessarily think it was a today story or a this week story. So you needed to develop the backstory behind it, rather than, well, there's been a recent vote to allow women bishops, and here's the local take on it. It needs to be developed and then have our link into the local area. Okay, but apart from that, again, well done. You really thought about the way you put this together, Isaac. So I'm really pleased about that. And more than one vicar, you know, you've got your female vicar and you've got your male, and it just worked. So well done. You know, it's a sort of a thing that you need to actually shoot on a Sunday with people going to church and maybe getting vox pops to really get the flavour and get them filming inside. That's, you know, A1 is to think about this beforehand. Get into a church on the Sunday, see parishioners, talk to parishioners, let's see them, you know, taking communion, whatever it might be. Get the whole thing, and then you get a whole load more to your story. It's just much more in it, rather than, you know, I went Monday and there was no one around, but I did get the vicar. So that's it. That's all I'd say. It would give you more to it, but what you've done is really good. Then the coming up, I like it. It's a long bulletin, it's 22. I mean, it is too long, and I'll talk later about what I would miss out. But the coming up's fantastic. So well done. And it's like, don't worry, we're going to bring you this old boy soon. So keep everyone, you know, with you, and that is great. What I would say, even though, Zena, you're going into a pretty sad story afterwards, you've just got to smile off the back of it and react to it. Otherwise, it looks like I wasn't watching that. Or I've got no sense of humour. So you just need to react off the back of it. Just a smile, doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to say anything, just as long as you smile, and then you can let yourself go into this next story about horse owners, which was good. Another well-told story and lots of shots. I might have liked you, Megan, to see the horses out on a hack or something, so you could get out and about. But just doing them where you did them was absolutely fine. It was nice to have you doing a piece of camera on top of a horse, get in as part of it. Excellent. I wonder whether you could have moved off at the end. You could have got a little bit of movement. I don't know if you were shooting on your own or you were shooting with somebody, which made it more difficult. And obviously you can't do it, especially with a horse. Never worked with children and animals, so it probably wouldn't have behaved or it would have kicked over your camera. But if you were with someone else, you might have been able to get, you know, some movement in it. So that would have been a possibility. Just be careful in your voiceover script. Have a look back at it, where you start talking about the helicopter seeds. You've actually finished seeing the shots of the helicopter seeds. So you've got to be careful, because when we all know that that's a helicopter, okay, but you need to explain to the audience that, look, this is what is poisoning them. And these were the cases, you know, when a couple of horses died, whenever they died. But you mention that first, and by the time you talk about helicopter seeds, they've gone. It's just about matching the words with your pictures. But you know, again, you have a good sequence for the vet. I really thought that was, you were thinking about how you introduced the vet, and you've got him with all his drugs and whatever, and that was a really good setup. Look at this one, and you see. That's how to do it. That's to do a setup for somebody when you're going to get a piece of sot, and that's what you've done. So that was good, and it was a good grab from him. I think you were slightly tortured at the end with your bolts and whatever. You know, maybe you could have gone to opening the door. It just slightly tortured. It's not a natural phrase, I think, that we would have said. So I know what you're trying to do. Maybe it was a little over the top. Well done for trying to get those pictures to match your words, or your words to match your pictures. Maybe it was a little bit tortured on this occasion. But, you know, I got another good piece. So, Megan, well done. And again, your voice has matured. You're really thinking about the way your voiceover goes. And there's sort of a smoothness to it before, where there was very much a, you know, as I said, it was a sort of sing-songy fairy tale type. And now you've really, I think you brought it down in the register and you found a smoothness in it. So from that point of view, very well done. Okay, the news in brief then. I mean, the Winchester Christmas Market always gives us a story, which is great news. And the setup shots, absolutely perfect. It's exactly the sort of thing we want in a news in brief. So from that point of view, very good. The Jane Austen story, the two sort of ran into each other, and then this is part of our problem with news in brief, because we can't cross-roll. We only have one timeline that we can play out. So I think the pacing was a little bit tricky, because I actually thought that it was the same story, and it wasn't quite. Well, it isn't. So we needed a sort of separation. I don't know whether actually, if we've got two together, we should put a wipe in between the two to actually really separate the two stories. And I think then we have a real hard timing of where the shot changes, and in the gallery somebody should be counting down to the shot change so that we know where the end of the first story is and the second story begins. So maybe let's get some news in brief next week or this week, and let's have a wipe in there so we know we're going on to a next story, and maybe a locator. So I have Winchester for that first one, and I know it's Winchester again, or you put Jane Austen or something. Let's have a locator on our news in brief. Okay, Laura, with your Alabama Rot. Now, it's nice to have an update. What I like is that you're thinking about, let's have an update on a story that I've previously done, that we've previously covered. However, I mean, it was great to get a case, and you're going back over old ground, and you've got the vet, so it is a worthy story. I actually think we could have done without this story, because we've got, you know, dead horses, dead dogs. I think you can only have one dead animal a week. All right, new rule: one dead animal a week. That's it. You can't have both. So I think it was one story too many. I think you can see why you wanted to do it, but I think there's either room for Megan's story or there's room for Laura's story, but there ain't room for both stories. So it was great to go over it, and you've got your you know, your human interest, you've got your case study, so that's important. You've got the vet, but you know, I'd also like to have seen, you know, can we see an abrasion? Was there anywhere that they took shots? Is there anywhere online that you can see exactly what you're talking about, which the vet was talking about, which the owner was talking about? That's what I wanted to see. What is this Alabama Rot? Let's see. You know, go in and see a case. I think we saw a microscope on this one. It may have been in the previous story, I can't remember, sorry. But let's see what it is, okay? And go from there. But having said that, I don't think it sat in the bulletin quite right. But well done, Laura, for telling that story anyway. Moving on to sport. Well done, sport. Okay, it's only football, but you are moving on with the way you cover your sport, which is very good. Rodri, I think you've got a great voice. You're looking good in the studio, and I think your voice has authority in there as well. Just soften up your thanks. I know I keep saying, let's have thanks. It just, you know, it's a thanks. Right, and here's our first story. So it's, you know, try and make it as relaxed as you can. But I think you have got good voice and authority, as I say in there. Ross, I think this is, it's a well-told story. Really well-told story. And what I like is the fact that you're listening to what I was saying during our conference last week, in that wherever you can, get some pictures. There'll always be pictures around. Somebody, whether it's the fire brigade, whether it's the club, whoever it might be, and you've got it in it, and you've got the players huddled around in their, you know, the blankets and things like that. It's perfect. It's exactly what you want. So well done. You've told the story. And use social media. Use their tweets. That's good. I've spoken to Gareth Messenger today about the way he's interpreted Sports Week for you, and it's great to have his eye on it as well, because he completely understands the process, and that's what he is doing now, basically, day in, day out, writing bulletins, sports bulletins like this. And he's right, bring in some social media, how they were kept up to date. It all works, and you're short of pictures, so bring in other things to make it happen. And, you know, again, it's a well-told story. So, Ross, I think you've done, you know, in the last couple of weeks, some good, really good stuff. There's a lot of promise there, so congratulations. Elliot, your story, the link, absolutely nailed it. Spot on. You know, we were abysmal, or the worst performance while I've been here. Those were the words that the coach, blah, blah. Exactly, it's something completely different. Not they were looking to bounce back after a poor run. Forget it. We're past that event now. So you're absolutely right, the way you're starting to think about these sports stories. What I would say about your package, Elliot, is the first half. You look at the way you've done the first half. You do say what you see too much. Okay, so a lot of the incidents are goalkeeper goes down, it's a good shot, goalkeeper goes down to his left-hand side and tips it around the post. I can see all that. You need to add something else to it. Okay, think of another way of explaining it. They tried and tried again, but again, X, Y, Z thwarted them. Okay, first it was him, then it was him. Whatever it might be, just try and find a different way. They should have been 4-0 down within, because X, Y, whatever it might be. Then, what you do in the second half is you say something like, well, the day could have got worse had it not been for the goalkeeper's heroics. And then you see a brilliant save. And that is the way to do it, because you're not saying what you see, you're just describing the sense of where the story is, and we can see for ourselves that he pulls off a brilliant save. So you don't need, from the corner, he tipped it over the bar because it was in a brilliant save. You're not doing that. You are saying the day could have got worse, were it not for the heroics of the Eastleigh goalkeeper, Basingstoke goalkeeper. So, you know, that is what you should be thinking of, and those are the type of techniques you should be using rather than the one you used in the first half. One other thing, Elliot, I would say, don't sign off before we hear the grab. It's one of those occasions where you just don't bother signing off. You lead in to the manager at the end, and he was very strong, and from that point of view, that's excellent. Really good interview to get things like that, because that will resonate around that dressing room. And they'll think, he called us rubbish, he said we were, you know, and it'll stir them up. And we go, good grab. But don't sign off before it. It's one of those occasions you just don't bother signing off. Okay? And then you've used your brain with the graphic off the back of it saying, more disappointment, FA Cup, they're not in it, and thank you very much for mentioning Bristol City. Well done, you make me happy. Simple. Even Bristol City get a mention on Winol. Fantastic. Okay, so good sport. Again, it's only 2 football stories, but at least the first story wasn't watching the highlights. So from that point of view, very well done. Okay, the Leonard Cohen story at Hattie. You are sort of tied here, aren't you? Because you probably haven't got any clearance for music, and pictures is difficult. So while it's a great Winchester story, university story, and I think we should do it, you know, we've got to promote ourselves as a university. So well done for that. You've got difficulties with it. So you've tried to work your way around it, and well done. There is, however, a jump cut in there of the interview, and you haven't covered it, and that is nasty. So you've got the lecturer, and he goes from one piece of sock to another, and that jump cut has not been covered in any way, and that's nasty. And you've stuck his microphone basically on the outside, and you can just see the wire coming down. So just tidy it up, stick it underneath, and have it coming out here. That's fine. It's in almost exactly the same place, but don't have it just on the outside because it just looks messy. You just go, oh, I'll just clip it on here. Just not too nice. But, you know, another good story. Then we have got the W2 story. Excellent. let's, we have got to big ourselves up. Absolutely, we've got to big ourselves up. So from that point of view, let's definitely do it. Let's definitely do it. What I would say though is be careful with your Aston strap, your name tag, because it goes over 2 shots. And so once that person is out of vision, that strap has got to disappear. Otherwise, it looks a bit messy. I'm not quite sure why that was carried over. But again, good. Let's sell ourselves. It's nice. And you've got the right people, and they're all praising us, and we've got a little idea of what's going on in it. Maybe we could have had a bit more, but ultimately, that's fine. And maybe rather than say, go to winol.co.uk, we need another strap. Okay, but that was good. And then Ronald Burgess. Oh, it's just box office, and it's really nicely done, Lauren. It's a great opening line, really, simple, small in stature, but big hit. Absolutely, more or less the same way that anyone would start that. And that's not to say it's cliched. It's not. It's just a clever device. It's very simple, but it's engaging, like he is, like Ronald. I mean, it's a lovely story. Very nice doing the little counter on the side. I would say I wanted a variety of shots of him dancing. I think it looks like we've only got 1 shot, and he just sort of dances around the front a bit. So from that point of view, I think we could have developed it. We could have got reaction from people watching him, and what do you think of him? Is he mad? Oh, he's great, whatever. I just think it would have enlivened, just given it a little bit more. What sort of reaction he gets from people who are there? But it's great to go to his home. Great to be with him, and just a real thought about this story, and it's fantastic. So well done for that. I loved it, and it's such a great and finally story, and it just rounds off what is a really good bulletin. Zena, well done for reading it. It's you've got a bit of authority there as well, which is great. Tate, if you're in charge this week, which I think you were, of getting all those stories and getting them in that sort of order, I think you've done really, really well. As I say, I think 40% unreported from the Hampshire Police may have been a bit underplayed, but I think you've got to look. You've got animals, you've got small men dancing, you've got black gay women archbishops in there, you've got human interest in a house exploding, you've got serious story in Hampshire Police underreporting crime, you've got real human interest in gambling. This is a really good bulletin. This is a really, really good bulletin. So everyone should take a big pat on the back. You've got 1 more week, and if you beat that, you've done really well. But can I just say, everyone has come on. If this is X Factor, it's very difficult to kick someone off this week because you're all at a high level. So just like to say, well done, and keep up the good work. And I will see you very soon, I hope.